Today, we're going to map out lines for a self-portrait. You need a piece of paper to draw the portrait on. 8.5 by 11 is fine. If you want to follow along with me, mine is 7 by 10. You need a couple small sheets of paper like the pink ones I have there, a ruler, a pencil, a light one, so just a yellow pencil is fine, an eraser, and of course a sharpener. You need your face. So you're going to be looking in a mirror. I'm going to be looking at a photograph so I can share that with you. Before doing any drawing, observation needs to happen. So that's why we're looking at our faces. Today, I'm making my observations right over top of my photo with a dry erase marker. You're just looking in your mirror to make your observations. You're not using any markers or drawing. The first thing to notice is that we are symmetrical. That means that one side of our face is equal to the other side. So if you had a line right down the middle of your face, whatever's on the left will be the same as at the right. You can kind of see on your face these little areas where it's the center, the ball of your nose, the kind of divot in the middle of your lip, in between your eyes. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to just take my ruler and I am going to draw a line down the center of my face to really make it very clear that yes, what's on one side is the same as the other. Now that we've made that observation, let's transfer that observation to our portrait. Bring back your portrait paper and let's get a line of symmetry on our portrait paper. We want to divide the left side and right side with a line. We could use a ruler and measure our paper at the top and the bottom and find the center, but there's another way. I could take my paper and I could line up the two corners as if I'm going to fold the entire paper in half, but I'm not. I am matching up the corners, making sure that they're very well matched, and then I slide my finger across and just pinch only at the top. When I open it up, you'll see there's a little crease. Take your pencil and make a mark there, a light one. I'm using a drawing pencil because that's easier for you to see on the camera. Don't use a dark pencil. Use a light one. Your yellow HB pencil will work just fine. Okay, I have to do the bottom as well. So I'm matching up the bottom of my paper, the two corners there, and I am going across and pinching in the middle. Again, do not crease the entire paper. That'll put a crease down your face in your portrait, and nobody wants that. Again, mark it with your pencil so you don't lose sight of where that halfway mark is. Now, pick up your ruler and line up those two marks. Always make sure your rulers are clean. I've used my rulers for lots of things, and you want it to be clean so you're not marking up your paper. I'm lining up my ruler and I am going to carefully draw a line. I'm showing you with the yellow pencil. Look how lightly I'm holding the pencil. Remember, this line doesn't really exist on our face. We're only drawing it to assist us in creating a portrait that's in proportion. So it has to be super light. I, unfortunately, must make mine dark. Otherwise, you can't see what I'm drawing, and it makes the whole video kind of silly. Let's go back to observing. We've figured out the center from left to right. Now we need to figure out the center from top to bottom. So here I have put my ruler up there. It is about 5 1/4 inch. So 2 tick marks after the 5. So half of that is 2 1/2 plus a 1/2 quarter is 2 3/8. So I'm going to put a little mark there, 2 3/8. Look what happens when I put that onto my paper. Now don't worry, you're saying measurements. I don't understand measurements. What you're really observing is that it's right around where the eyes are. That's all we need to know. You might have thought halfway on your face was your nose. No, it's about your eyes. So we are going to do a horizontal line right where my eyes are, our eye level line. And that's really all we need to know, is that the halfway mark is about where your eyes are. Before heading back to our portrait paper, let's make another observation. Notice that there is less space above my head than there is below my head because I have my neck and my shoulders there. Now we can head back to our portrait paper. On our portrait paper, we want to divide a top half and a bottom half, but we also want to leave space so that there's less at the top and more at the bottom. What we can't do is match up the corners and divide it in half because it's not even. There needs to be less at the top and more at the bottom. So let's use our ruler. My paper is 10 inches tall. Yours might not be. Yours might be 11. So at 10 inches tall, the halfway spot is 5 inches. But I don't want it at the halfway spot. I suggest you take 1 inch and a quarter off. So that would put me at 4, and then 1/4 above that, which is 3 1/4 from the top, or 4 1/4 from the bottom. Now, whatever you've decided, you got to do the same on the other side. Again, I suggest taking just one, making it 1 1/4 inch different between the top and the bottom. All right, so now I've got to come over here to 3 1/4 and I'm going to make a mark. Notice they are light. I'm just using that light HB pencil, so you actually can't see them, but you know I made them. So draw super lightly because we don't really have an eye level line. That's what we call that. That's where our eyes go, our eye level line. Yep, I had to go over it with my darker pencil. We're well on our way to mapping out a portrait. I see an area for the top of my head and the bottom of my head and the neck and shoulders. It seems like stuff will fit. While you're looking at it, if it seems like maybe your lines are crooked, mine do, but I think it's the camera, I'm going to double check. Just make sure these lines need to be parallel to the page, perpendicular to one another. That's important to keep our portrait in proportion. Let's go back to observing. So one of the ways to keep ourselves in proportion is to figure out something that we're going to use as our means of measuring. Not inches, feet, yards, but something on the face that we're going to relate everything else to. Rulers are usually what we use for measurement, but today we're going to use our eye. The purpose for the eye size will to have a measurement that we can relate everything else on the face to, so that no matter what size paper you have, you can create an eye that's in proportion to that size paper. Proportion, it's a big one. Think about a copy machine. If you put something on the copy machine and you want it to get bigger, everything on that paper gets bigger at the same rate or smaller at the same rate. That's our goal, is that no matter what size paper we have, even if it's a wall, we can create a portrait that's in proportion. So step 1 is observation. We want to see what is the relationship between the size of our eye and the rest of our face. So I'm taking a piece of paper, one of those small ones. In this case, it's not a pink one, but it's like those pink ones. And I am holding it up to my eye. You could just hold your fingers up to your eye, but I'm using a piece of paper so you can see. Now, this is one eye. I've created a measurement of 1 eye wide. Now, I want to know where the halfway mark is. I have a see-through paper and I can see the line on the back, but if you can't quite see it, you can put a little line there. So watch, I can kind of see it, but to help you see it, I'm going to draw a light line there and it's matched up at the front. Now, I'm going to match up those 2 lines and make a crease. That easily gets me the center. Of course, you could use a ruler, but I love it when we can just fold a piece of paper. So now I have 1 eye and I'm going to mark the center, and that is the center of my 1 eye wide measurement. Next, I want to just do a little trick so we don't get confused by that center line. That center line is going to be used to line up with the symmetry line and the eye level line. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to write myself a little code right over top of that line so I don't get confused as I work. So yes, I'm going to use it and line up with the symmetry line and the eye level line. That way I know that this is the center of the eye and don't use it for anything else. Now, when we had first observed, we noticed that there was the width of 1 eye in between my 2 eyes. And yep, there it is. There's the width of 1 eye in between my 2 eyes. Then I'm going to move it over, and yep, there's my regular eye. And to the right of that, another eye. So you might be thinking, is it really? Yes, my hair's black. Give it. Watch. I'm going to mark where that is. And then the center is actually kind of where the side of my head is. But look below. Check this out. My ear takes up that extra amount of space. So what have we determined? That there is 2.5 eyes on one side of the symmetry line. That must mean there's 2.5 eyes on the other side of the symmetry line, which would mean we are 5 eyes wide. Let's double check our observation. You with your fingers and mirror, me with my papers and my marker. I'm lining up my eye measurement sheet, the center line with the symmetry line, and then I'm going to mark tick marks. It's right on the corner of my eye. Then I move it over, which is one eye wide, and then move it over one more time, lining up tick marks. That gives me the side of my head. I'm symmetrical, so I go to the other side, and I'm doing those tick marks again. Yep, it's true. We are 5 eyes wide. Ish, right? There's always room for small changes, but ish. Let's go back to our portrait paper. Hopefully, you do have some small papers. It's time to use them. We are going to use this paper to figure out what size we should make our eye for our portrait. The eye size depends on the size of the paper. Remember, proportion. Here's what I'm doing. I'm laying my paper down on the eye level line, and I'm just drawing an eye that I think is the proper size. One eye that would leave a little space in the center for a nose, space to the right, one eye's width, and then a little bit more so I don't feel smushed. Now I need to turn it into a measuring tool. Remember, rulers have lines to help you mark the ends. So I'm going to take this eye measurement and just draw a line straight up from the edge. You're doing this too. You have your little papers and you're making an eye measurement, one eye wide. Now we need to know where the center is. Remember how we are going to use that folding technique? Make sure your outer lines are really dark. This way, if your paper is kind of see-through, most papers are, you can see through it and see the mark. Now I can see the mark, but you can't see it because of the camera. So I'm going to make a little line on it so that you can tell where the other mark is on the other side of the paper. You could do that for yours too if you're struggling. See how it's right on the other side? Now I'm going to match up those two marks and then crease it in half, and that gives me the center. I love this technique. It makes finding the center very easy. Then I'm just going to draw straight down. Now I have the center of the eye, 1/2 of the eye. Now for this one, I just did a little squiggly mark to define that that's the center line. Don't use it for anything else. The other one I did the symmetry line and the E for eye line. Remember that? I bet you do. So step 1, take this eye measurement tool, line it up with the symmetry line. See how it's lined up perfectly? Then take your pencil, the light one, your HB yellow, and all you have to do is make a mark. So far, we have the one eye in the center of the paper. Move the paper over, tick mark. Move it over one more time, tick mark. That is 2.5 eyes on the right. Yeah, there's room for an ear there. I'm feeling pretty good. Now, wait a minute. We need to check out something else first. I didn't talk about this. We have a height going the other direction. You can do an observation again in the mirror with your fingers, but I'm going to show you here on my photograph. I've turned the paper sideways on the symmetry line and mark that. Our head should be about 7 eyes tall. This measuring that I'm doing is showing that above the eye level is about 3.5 eyes and below it is about 3.5 eyes. And yes, the height of this is 7 eyes-ish, right? Sometimes you tack on a little bit more of an eye if you're feeling like you need a little bit down there on the chin. So here's why I stopped. We need to make sure there's room for 3.5 eyes on the top half. Take your eye measurement paper, line up the center of the eye with the eye level line. See how I've lined it up? Mark it. Gentle, light. We're erasing these later. Push your eye up. Line it up with that tick mark and mark it. So far, that's 1.5 eyes. Move it up and mark it. Notice how I only have to mark one tick mark because the other one's already marked. And move it up again and mark it. What you should have is 4 tick marks above the eye level line. That means you have 3.5 eyes. 3.5 plus 3.5 is 7. That's perfect. Okay, let's finish marking this up. Now that we know it's good, now you can go back and do both sides of your face because we're symmetrical. I'm going to use my dark pencil. Please don't use a dark pencil. Okay, so I'm lined up in the center and I've done my first eye where my nose would be. I've moved my paper over and I've made a mark. Move it over one more time. That's going to be the side of my head, ear included. I'm going to the other side of the symmetry line and doing 2 more eyes. That will give me a total of 5 eyes wide. And of course, don't forget about the height of our head. Line that eye measurement paper up with the eye level line. The first mark goes in the center, then we go upwards for 3 more eyes, and below the eye level line for 3 more eyes down there, for again our total of 7 eyes high. This is the end of Portraits Part 1, 5 eyes wide, 7 eyes tall. Keep your eye measurement paper handy for Part 2 where we do features. Until then, keep it in proportion.